Have you ever noticed how poor circulation in the legs doesn't warn you with a siren? It arrives slowly. First, it's that foot that stays cold even when the house is warm. Then comes the heavy leg at the end of the day, the brick feeling in the calf, a tingling here, a numbness there. And when you try to fix it, you fall into the same path almost everyone falls into. You buy one supplement, then another, then a combo with 10, 15 ingredients. And in the end, it feels like nothing really changes. And then a huge frustration hits, because besides not helping, it weighs on your wallet. The market is full of capsules that promise the world, but bring such tiny doses that they barely serve to mark presence on the label. You know those generic mixes with a little bit of everything? For circulation, in practice, it is often like trying to fill a pool with a coffee cup. You make an effort, spend money, and the result doesn't show up. But there is an important point that almost no one tells you in a simple way. For circulation in the legs, the body usually responds better when you get a few things right, but get them exactly right. Instead of 20 weak ingredients, 3 well-chosen compounds, in the right forms, can make much more sense. Today I want to show you exactly that. The 3 vitamins that speak most directly to leg circulation, each one with a different role. The first helps to open the way and improve flow. The second works on the flexibility of the vessels over time. And the third supports the body in maintaining this vessel, relaxation signal working. But there is one detail. It only delivers the best result if you take it at the right time of day. If you miss that timing, many people lose a big part of the effect and don't even understand why. Now, a quick caution. The right way. This is not a miracle promise, and it does not replace medical follow-up. Especially if you use a blood thinner, medication for blood pressure, cholesterol, have diabetes, or any liver issue, it is worth talking to the professional who follows you before taking a high dose on your own. The idea here is to give you a clear path, without fluff, so you know what makes sense and what is just advertising. So let's get straight to the point. The first vitamin is one that many people know, but almost everyone uses the wrong way. And that is why they think it doesn't work. The first vitamin is niacin, the famous vitamin B3. And I like to think of it as a kind of cleanup crew for flow. Because when circulation is weak, there are almost always 2 problems happening together. On one side, the vessels become more tight, less relaxed. On the other, the blood does not move with the same lightness as before. Then the result shows up where it bothers most. At the ends, cold feet, ankles that feel heavy, legs that get tired quickly. That feeling that the blood is arriving drop by drop. But here comes the detail that confuses many people. You pick up a regular multivitamin and see vitamin B3 there in a very small dose. That serves more to prevent a basic daily deficiency, not to truly affect circulation. To feel a difference, the conversation changes. It is another dose and mainly another form. The form that usually has the most noticeable effect on circulation is the niacin that causes the famous flush, which many people describe as warmth in the face, in the neck, sometimes a reddish tone, and an annoying itch that lasts for a while and then passes. This flush scares those who have never had it, but it is precisely the sign that there was a quick opening of the more superficial small vessels. It is as if, for a moment, the body pressed an expand button on the passage. And why am I insisting so much on this point? Because there are versions, made not to cause a flush, and they are favorites for being more comfortable. But for those looking for that more evident circulation boost, they do not always deliver the same response. It is like comparing a fan on low with a fan on medium. Both move the air, but only one gives that feeling of, now that did it. Now let's talk about the safe way to think about this. Niacin is not an innocent little candy when used in a higher dose. The idea is not, the more, the better. The idea is to start low, see how the body reacts, and, if it makes sense, adjust with guidance from the professional who follows you, especially if you have a history of sensitive liver, diabetes, use medication for blood pressure, cholesterol, or other continuous medications. Many people get excited, increase too quickly, and then quit because they feel unwell or because the flush becomes a major discomfort. The path that usually works best is the path of respect. Start with a lower dose together with a meal, because food helps soften the sensation. Then the body learns, and over time, for many people the flush becomes milder and shorter. Some people, after a few weeks, barely mind it anymore. Others continue to feel it strongly and prefer not to continue. And that is fine. Each person's body is its own body. And what does niacin do in practical terms? Think of a road. If the road is narrow with tight curves, any movement turns into a traffic jam. Now imagine that, suddenly, this road gains more lanes. When the flow meets less resistance, the heart does not need to fight as much to push blood all the way down there. And the legs are grateful. Becomes more open. That is what vasodilation is like. The vessel relaxes, the passage becomes wider, and the blood can circulate with less resistance. For those who suffer from cold extremities, this can be a turning point. In addition, there is the feeling of lighter blood, which many people describe as less heaviness, less drag. It is not magic, it is body physics. But there is one point that I always like to make clear. Opening the passage is part of the story. It is like unclogging and widening a pipe. It helps a lot. But if that pipe is stiff, rigid, losing elasticity over time, the flow may improve on one side, yet it remains limited on the other. And that is where the second vitamin comes in, the one I call the flexibility restorer. Vitamin K2, especially in a form called MK7, works much more on the state of the vessel than on the immediate sensation of the day. If niacin is the hand that opens the door, K2 is the maintenance that keeps the door from sticking. Now be careful. K2 is not the same thing as K1. K1 is closely linked to the clotting process and appears a lot in vegetables and leafy greens. It is important, of course. But when the conversation is about vessel walls and elasticity, K2 has a different role. And that is why the form matters so much. And when you look at the label, this MK7 makes a difference because it usually stays active in the body longer, giving a more constant presence throughout the day. And what is the logic behind this flexibility story? Over time, habits, and age, the body can start to deposit calcium where it should not. Calcium is great in the right place, bones, teeth, but when it starts settling in soft tissue, like in the vessel walls, this turns into a kind of hardening. It is as if the hose that should be flexible begins to gain a shell layer. Then it loses its flexibility, and a vessel that has no elasticity struggles to keep up with changes in pressure and the body's needs, especially when you stand up, walk, stay on your feet for a long time. K2 comes in as a kind of organizer of this mess. It helps activate proteins in the body itself that work as directors. Calcium needs to stay where it builds, not where it hardens. And when this process happens consistently, The tendency is for the vessel to become more responsive, more alive, less stiff. Here, two important warnings. First, the dose of K2 is usually in micrograms, not milligrams. It seems like a small detail, but many people get confused and buy the wrong one. Second, if you use a blood thinner or any medication that affects clotting, this is the type of supplement you cannot decide to take on your own. It is not fear, it is responsibility. K2 interacts with this system, and that needs to be aligned with the professional who follows your case. And how should you take it to absorb it better? K2 is a vitamin that does well with fat. It is not about eating excessive fat, that is not it. It is just not taking it on a completely empty stomach, as if it were water. Taking it together with a meal that has some healthy fat helps the body make better use of it. So up to this point, you have two pieces of the puzzle. The first works on opening and the sensation of flow. The second works on the quality and elasticity of the path through which this blood passes. But the third piece is still missing, the signal that the body uses to tell the vessels to relax on a daily basis, especially when you are active, walking, climbing stairs, doing the normal things of life. And this is where vitamin C comes in, but not in that simplistic way of, oh, vitamin C is for immunity. It is much more than that. It supports an inner layer of the vessel, as if it were an intelligent lining that helps produce a substance the body uses to keep the vessels relaxed. And with poor circulation, this system is often not functioning at its best level. But I am going to tell you this calmly, because there is a choice of form that avoids stomach discomfort, and there is the detail of timing that many people get wrong and then think it didn't work. And it is precisely this detail that changes the game for many people. Vitamin C enters this story as the fuel of the signal that keeps the vessels cooperating. Because it is not enough to just have a more open path and a more flexible vessel wall if the body is not sending the right message, at the right time, for that vessel to relax when you need it. And that message, in a very simple way to understand, is like an open up a little more there that the body uses during the day, especially when you get up from a chair, walk around the house, go out to take care of something, stand in the kitchen. All of this requires the blood to go down and up more efficiently. When this system is weak, the person feels it in practice. Legs getting tired quickly, feet that take a long time to warm up. The feeling that the body is always saving flow. Vitamin C helps because it supports the inner lining of the vessels, as if it were the skin on the inside of the arteries. And it is precisely this lining that takes part in the production and preservation of a substance that strongly relaxes the vessels. Many people have heard of nitric oxide, but what matters here is not memorizing the name. What matters is understanding the role. It is a natural relaxer, an opening signal. And vitamin C helps this process happen and helps that signal not disappear too quickly along the way. Now there are two practical details that make a difference. The first is the form. Many people take regular vitamin C, the more acidic kind, and when they try to use a larger amount to feel an effect throughout the whole body, they start to complain about an upset stomach, heartburn, intestinal discomfort. Then the person quits and concludes that vitamin C is not for me. But sometimes it is not vitamin C itself. It is the format. That is why many people prefer the buffered versions, mixed with minerals, or the liposomal versions, which are made to be gentler on the stomach and easier to absorb. In simple terms, the person can keep the routine without feeling unwell. The second detail is the most overlooked, and it is that hook I mentioned back at the beginning. Timing. Some people take vitamin C at night because it is when they remember, or because they associate it with immunity before bed. But for circulation, and for this role of supporting vessel relaxation during the day, it is usually better to place vitamin C at the beginning of the day and, at most, in the middle of the afternoon. And why? First, because in some people, higher dose vitamin C creates a feeling of being more alert, more switched on. It does not turn into coffee, but it can disturb the sleep of those who already sleep lightly. And let's be honest, sleeping poorly is one of the things that most worsens the entire body, including circulation. It does not make sense to improve one side and disrupt the other. Second, because the time when you most demand circulation is during the day, when you are in motion. It is when you are standing, walking, using your leg muscles, requiring the body to distribute flow better. So it makes sense to bring forward this support to the time when it is most useful. In other words, if you want vitamin C to help this system work in your favor, it fits better with morning and early afternoon than with nighttime. Now you might be thinking, okay, but how do I put these three things together without becoming a slave to capsules? This is where I like to simplify, because what works for most people is not the perfect plan. It is the possible, repeatable plan that becomes a habit. Think of a basic routine like this, without complication. One part with breakfast, to start the day with the body lubricated for movement. Another part with lunch or early afternoon, to support the period when you use your legs the most. And whatever is sensitive for your stomach, always with food, and always with the same idea in mind. Consistency beats excitement. Now, before I tie this into a 90-day plan, I need to break a myth that keeps many people stuck in the cycle of spending and getting frustrated. The multivitamin myth. It is not that multivitamins are bad. The point is that they almost always come with small doses, designed for the basics, to prevent deficiency, not to have a noticeable effect on something specific like circulation in the legs. The person takes it, feels like they are doing something, but the body does not receive enough quantity and the right form to change the story. That is why you see so many people saying, "I already tried vitamins and it didn't help." Sometimes they did try, but they tried a symbolic dose, the wrong form, or without enough time. And then comes the adult part of the subject, safety and common sense. Niacin, for example, is the one that requires the most care because it affects body sensation more and can interact with conditions and medications. If the person has diabetes, a history of sensitive liver, uses continuous medication, they need to align this with the professional who follows them. It is not to play "I saw it on the internet and started." It is to use your head. K2 is another delicate point if the person takes a blood thinner. There is no such thing as, "Oh, I'll test it and see." You have to talk to the professional, because it affects a system that is already being controlled by medication. Vitamin C in general is the most straightforward, but even so, in a high dose, it can loosen the bowels or irritate the stomach if the form is not good for you. And then the solution is usually to adjust the form, divide it throughout the day, and keep water nearby. Now, what can you expect without fantasy? In the first week, many people notice more the body's adaptation, especially if using the niacin that causes a flush. The focus there is not miracle. It is understanding how you react and creating a routine. From the second until about the 6th week, what many people report, when everything is well aligned, is an improvement in the heaviness in the legs at the end of the day, a feeling of less cold extremities, and a more present, more consistent flow. It is not that life changes overnight, but you begin to notice small victories. And after a few months is when the slower work, the vessel flexibility, starts to show more. It is like fixing a house. There is the quick cleaning that you see right away, and there is the renovation that takes time, but changes the structure. That is why the commitment suggestion is simple. Think of 90 days as an honest test, not 9 days. 90. Because the body is organic, it responds at its own pace, and consistency is what separates "I tried" from "it worked." And now I am going to close by tying everything together in a direct message, so you do not leave here with a bunch of loose information in your head. These 3 vitamins work as a trio because each one covers a part of the problem. One helps open the way, another helps the vessel stay more flexible, and the third sustains the body's natural relaxation signal, especially when you are living your day. When you put all of this together, the idea becomes very simple. You stop chasing magic powder and start using a plan with logic. 3 pieces, 3 different functions, working as a team. Niacin, in the form that causes a flush, comes in as that more direct help to open passage and make the flow looser. Many people feel this as warmth reaching the extremities more easily and less feeling of stiff legs at the end of the day. Vitamin K2 in the MK7 form comes in as the patient part of the process, taking care of vessel flexibility over time, so the path does not become rigid and stubborn. And vitamin C comes in supporting the body's natural signal that tells the vessel to relax, but with a detail that is worth gold. Place it in the morning and early afternoon, because that is when you most need this support. And because, in some people, taking it late at night disrupts sleep and ends up backfiring. Now I want you to take a very down-to-earth message. This is not about taking a capsule and expecting a miracle. It is about consistency and responsibility. If you use a blood thinner, if you have diabetes, if you take medication for blood pressure, cholesterol, or have any history of sensitive liver, it is not shameful. It is smart to align this with the professional who already follows you, because the goal here is to improve your life, not create another problem. And if you are tired of spending money on generic multivitamins and miracle mixes with weak doses, do an honest test. 90 days of commitment, observing your body. Notice simple, day-to-day things. Do your feet warm up faster? Do your legs feel less heavy at night? Do you feel less drag when you stand for a long time? These small changes are the kind of clues that show the path is becoming more favorable. If this content helped you understand what truly makes sense for circulation in the legs, I have 2 quick, very direct requests. First, subscribe to the channel, because I always bring this type of explanation without fluff. In simple language, for those who are over 50 and want to take care of their body with more clarity. Second, comment down below one thing, just one, that you feel the most in your circulation. Cold feet, heavy legs, tingling, cramp, swelling at the end of the day. Write it in your own way. I read them and used these comments to bring the next topics that are more useful, closer to real life. And not to forget, circulation improves when you stop betting on a little bit of everything and start getting what matters right, in the right form and at the right time. Take care of your rhythm, do it safely, and give your body time to respond. See you in the next video.